everyone. So this will be a continuation from my coffee talk that I used to have when I first started my channel. I think I stopped doing them midway through my channel's life, and so I kind of wanted to continue it because I feel like now that I have more experience with children and being a mom and working, and as of now taking a step back from work. Well, I still do hair twice a week, which is part-time, but for the most part I'm home, and then I run the rest of my household. So I wanted to start by talking about my pregnancies. Originally I started my channel with Olivia, and now I've added 2 more babies. So and they were both I had natural and a C-section, so I can speak for both on just my opinion. I think everyone's pain tolerance and experience with children and their pregnancies and all the stories, I just feel like everyone has their own story, and whatever that may be or whatever they believe in is up to them, and it is up to them. So I'll just tell you about my experiences. We got married 2018, and we had Carter, which now she's 2. She was born on September 11th, and she was probably our only child that we had planned on having, and it was a kind of a difficult situation for me because I hadn't been a mom to a newborn in a really long time. I think it was like 10 years. So I felt a little rusty, and I felt that I didn't know if my body was gonna be able to remember and do it. And to my surprise, Carter's pregnancy was pretty textbook. I mean, I kind of got lucky there with me even being a little bit older. I guess I was 33 when I got pregnant with her, so I was still in the child rearing time, so my body wasn't too bad. It bounced back a little bit, but I did notice that everything has changed with raising children. All the things that you need, there's really cool inventions now that I think are pretty useful that I probably could have used when I was raising Olivia, but I got to use them for these kids, so it was kind of cool with that situation. But as for pregnancy, because that's what we're talking about today, I had a induced labor. So we went in, it was early. I want to say it was about like 6 in the morning. We got induced. I got there, by 10 I had the epidural in and the Pitocin, and then she came like 3 hours later. So we were like in and out, and then I had her, and then I left the hospital the next day by 3 o'clock. So it was like in, out. She weighed 6 pounds, 13 ounces. Or no, she was 7'2". 7'2". Sorry, Olivia was 6 pounds, 13 ounces. Carter was 7 pounds, 2 ounces. And she was really healthy. So, that was pretty standard. We got really lucky with Carter. And then Payton came along, and Payton was completely different from anything I've known. Olivia and Carter were like very textbook. And when I say textbook, it was just easy, exactly what you had read might happen, and in a good scenario. With Payton, it was terrifying. I had a completely different experience at the same hospital I gave birth to Carter a year before. So not with the hospital, but with just the circumstance. So with Payton, who's now 1 year old, she was a baby that just had to be here. We weren't not trying. I had a IUD in, and everything was fine. and I didn't find out I was pregnant until I was 6 months pregnant. I know that sounds insane because I used to watch that show, what is it? Like I was pregnant and I didn't know, like, what is that? I don't even forget. I think that's what the name of the show is. But I remember watching that and thinking, how do these people not know their body? Or how do they not know when they feel something different? Well, my excuse, was that one, I just gave birth. So if I was tired, I was tired. I thought it was because I was tired. Had a newborn, or not a newborn, but she was, I want to say 6 months at the time when Carter was born, or Payton was born. So I was just tired from having a new baby. And then as for the morning sickness, never had any. And then I want to say when I was, and I didn't know, but I was 3 months pregnant, my father passed away. So my body, I don't know if it went into like shock or just on, just in survival mode. But I was, just trying to plan his funeral with my siblings and my mom. And I was super busy with that. And I was gaining a little weight, but I had thought it was like stress eating, and normally I don't do that, so that could have been my first, inclination. But even then, I don't even know like how I didn't know. Maybe I knew subconsciously, but my body was just not able to process it. I had thought, well, I have an IUD in, so that's impossible. And I think I would know if I was pregnant. I thought I would be sick. I wasn't. I started getting my stomach started getting bigger, but not in like lower area, which I thought was weird. I thought it was just like stomach. So I thought I kind of had like a tumor or something. So I planned a doctor's appointment the day after my dad's service. So I was just afraid I was going to get really bad news, and I just didn't want to get any news before I had to host. We had 400 people at my dad's service. I was just, just super stressed, obviously grieving, and maybe even not even grieving fully. I was just kind of going through the motions. And, so the next day I went in and my doctor had told me, well, you could be pregnant. And I go, well, I have the IUD in. And she goes, yeah, that's true, but there's always a small chance. And I'm like, oh my God. And as soon as she said that, I'm like, I'm pregnant. I just know it. And then we went and we took a pregnancy test, and I just couldn't even believe this was even happening. And then when it came back, it said it was positive. And so she was kind of surprised because she said she's never experienced something like this before. So we went instantly to the ultrasound room, and we found out I was 20 weeks. And I was that's halfway through, so it was pretty shocking. I had to tell my husband that, and then I also had to tell him he wasn't gonna have a boy, because we have 4 girls, right? So we have his daughter who's 16, Mia, and then Olivia who's 11, and then Carter who's 2, and then Payton. And so I had to tell him, oh, hey, guess what? Good news, I don't have a tumor. That also good news, we're having a baby, but surprising news, I'll say that. And he was just in shock. He just couldn't believe it. And it was just kind of like an interesting experience to have to tell him that. So after that, she came early, because when you have an IUD in, you're technically high risk, because you don't know when the body is going to try to abort your child. You don't know when your body's going to go through that. So that was a risk we were going to take. We couldn't take the IUD out because it could also cause a miscarriage. So I just had to, just be on alert all the time and just make sure I was being good to my body. Well, this is when COVID had hit, and we came home, all the salons closed, and I went to work one morning right when they opened back up. That first time everywhere opened Well, in California, we opened for like a month and then they closed us down. Maybe even a month. I went to work just trying to get my clients in that really needed it too. And I started feeling like really tight, like, you know, like kind of like Braxton Hicks. But I know what those are. I've felt them before, so I'm like, oh, it's fine. It'll go away. Usually they kind of go away. I just thought, I didn't really know what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah. Well, I went into work. I started blow drying and did the whole service. And then I'm like, oh, God, it's still not going away. And I guess I have a high pain tolerance because I was just kind of breezing through it. And then it started getting stronger and stronger. And luckily, my client was a nurse. And she had sat with me and she had talked with me. And we've kind of talked to everything. And she just said, I don't feel comfortable leaving you here with going through this. You can't drive going through these pains. I was getting like contractions I wouldn't even time them. That's how crazy it was. It was fast. So as soon as we talked it out, we decided she's going to take me to the hospital where I was going to give birth. She took me there, but while I was in there was traffic, and I'm sitting in the driver's seat just hoping my water doesn't break all over her nice nice seats. And I'm just in these like excruciating pains. So I get into the emergency room and they say I'm in labor, and I'm like, no way. My daughter, I'm only 8. I think I was only 8.5. I was 31 weeks at that time. So I had like 9 weeks to go, and I was like, no way. Like there's no way. So I was just hoping they'd maybe give me something to stop the contractions. But then we went in, and they told me that I'm in active labor. And at that time it was COVID, so no one could be in there. So my client, who I love dearly, came in with me, and she stayed until my husband got there. And then once my husband got there, she stayed with my kids until my mom got there to get the kids, which is amazing. She's so amazing. And she did that, and then he came in. And he was just so surprised, like, what is going on? How is this even happening? No way. He thought it was a false alarm. I was going to the hospital, and he was just like, whatever, it'll pass, because we've had that happen before. And then my daughter was breech, so they said that I would have to give birth to her either breech, which I was like, how is that even possible? Or through C-section. And I had to do it fast because my body was trying to expel my baby out. And I told them I don't want to give birth breech. I've heard really bad things about that happening, and they reassured me that, especially the doctor said, he was an older doctor. He said, I've done this a million times, like, just trying to reassure me. And I'm like, no, I can't. And I've never had a C-section before. So I said, I would be open to do that, because I was terrified I just heard so many horror stories about that. So we go in, and I have I don't even think I've had a sip yet. Hold on. We've had my Carter. Let go. You can't have Baba. So then after that, I had we went straight into the delivery room, or the surgery room, and they gave me an epidural, and it didn't work. I could feel everything that they were doing. It was so crazy. So then they had to knock me out. So then, Payton was born, and no one witnessed it except the doctors. Graham couldn't even come in, because when they put you out, he's not allowed to be in there. And then she went straight to a different hospital, because she was only 3 pounds 11 ounces, and that hospital couldn't take that small of a baby. So they took her to a different hospital that specialized in small preemies, and so I didn't, and it was COVID, so I had to heal and get out of the hospital, and then I could go see my baby. Luckily, we could see her through a screen. They would have like a camera in front of her, and I could check on her. That was it. It was horrible. It was like a nightmare. I didn't get to have the skin on skin My husband didn't either. We didn't really get to see her. Graham just got to see her just a little bit as she was going through they were taking her through to the ICU, I think. So I woke up and I wasn't pregnant anymore. It was the craziest thing. I think, like, I only knew I was pregnant for about 8 weeks, and then we had her. It was the craziest experience. It was almost as if I blinked and it was over. And then after you have a C-section, you can't leave for a little bit, and I was exhausted, and it was the worst pain ever. I mean, just the recovery from a C-section was so bad. I mean, I would do a natural labor anytime over the C-section. That was a very interesting experience because it was so hard. You can't laugh, you can't do anything. You can't lift, you can't pull anything down, you can't you can't even use your ab muscles for anything. You have to have people help you up, or you have to move to the side, maybe roll over. It was terrible. And then I can't even imagine someone actually taking care of a baby and having to heal through that, because my baby was in the NICU for 3 weeks, and I couldn't even imagine even taking care of a newborn at that time, because it's just so much work and you're exhausted. And all the while, I'm home and I'm pumping, trying to get milk, and stressed out, grieving still, and just scared. Just traumatized. I think if you were to talk to me at that time, you would just look at me and just think, it was like I was in a fog. I would just kind of look at you just like I was so tired. And then we got her home. She was super tiny. I want to say she was like 4.5 pounds at that time. Super tiny. Now she is like my little chunky thing. I just love her so much. She's so funny. She's always happy, very chill. Like it was almost as if her whole entry into this world was so traumatizing that she's just so like numb to it or something. She's just so happy. But there's nothing, like, even if she's sad, she's not sad for long. Or if she's mad, she just cries for, like, if she wants a bottle or something. But even then, there's not a peep from her, even the NICU nurses. So I would just say that how much I love the nurses there. They were so good with her. They knew all these things of how she was, because they would feed her and they'd be like, not a peep from Payton, I swear. Like, she's the most well-behaved baby here. You would never hear peep from her. And so she just, and it kind of shows in her personality. So it's just so crazy to experience both scenarios, and just being grateful that, she's here and that she fought. And that's what I think, is that she wanted to be here so bad, and that she fought. And even when we tried to not have a child, even when we try to control that situation, it doesn't always happen. And a lot of people will be like, oh, you guys like didn't wait the 6 weeks and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, we did everything we were supposed to do. And it didn't matter. She still wanted to be here. So it was a cool experience now that it's over. But now being home with them, it's a lot harder. Pregnancy it's like one journey, and then after is like a whole nother journey. But so that's my take on, C-sections and natural birth. For me, I think the natural birth was a little bit easier, even though it wasn't natural per se. I'd say I still use drugs. So that is clear with Livia and Carter. I still had the epidural. With Livy, I tried not to. So that was hard, because I was putting myself through a lot of pain when I knew, at the end, I ended up getting one. But it was a lot. I tried. And once I got the epidural with Olivia, I relaxed, and then she finally came. But it was like 18 hours of labor And then finally I got the epidural, and then she came like, I want to say 3 hours later. But yeah, so I've experienced both. I would say I would much rather give birth naturally. The healing process is a lot easier. That's my take on both of those. But like I said, I mean, it's all hard and depends on who you are and how you look at it, your pain tolerance, your situation. It's all situational. But for me, I would say that C-section was the hardest, especially the recovery. Obviously you're not doing anything, you're not doing the pushing, but I mean, I would take a natural recovery over a actual surgical recovery, because that was really hard. But anyway, if you guys, I was going to start doing a Q&A. If you guys want to submit any questions down below, so I can do my next video. The next video I'm going to do, hopefully I'll release it in a week, but it's for just holiday stuff. So it'll be like my favorite holiday napkin folds. I did that one on my Instagram a long time ago, and I got good feedback. So I'm going to do a video on that, but look for that. And I will see you guys next time. Okay, bye.